What's up, guys? This is Nick from Art Study Poker, and in today's video, going to be continuing the Poker 101 series with today's topic covering relevance. So what I mean by relevance is that I think too many players worry about concepts that are really irrelevant within their player pool. So to give you guys a little bit of an example, I think that players in live low stakes games, live mid stakes games, I think that these players that understand GTO a little bit, game theory optimal play, understand like balanced strategies and not being exploitable themselves, I think they worry way too much about this. I think they worry way too much about their lines being exploitable, their general strategies being exploitable. I think they worry too much about players, like regulars within their player pool, being able to develop really strong counter strategies. These are all concepts and thoughts that are really irrelevant for most of you guys that are playing live low stakes, that might be playing some mid live stakes games. Maybe you're playing low stakes, mid stakes online. Even if you're playing a little bit of like high stakes online or playing some higher stakes games live, I still think that I see players, from my experience, worrying a little bit too much about balance and giving their opponents too much credit for being able to exploit them and adjust very quickly. Now, yes, in the higher stakes games and with really good pros and opponents that understand balance, then I think you do need to worry about that stuff a little bit more. But for the majority of you guys, those are going to be irrelevant thoughts. And the reason that I bring this up is that the last video I just did, poker hand reviews, do I check or do I bet? If you guys haven't checked that video out yet, go ahead and check it out. It's an interesting hand. Essentially, long story short, I have pocket tens as the pre-flop raiser. There's a player in position on me. He's loose and passive post-flop, especially. He's loose and passive generally, but post-flop more so than he is pre-flop. Ace 9-5 flop. Checks through. There's another opponent in the hand out of position. He's a limper. We're not going to worry about him because he's going to fold on the turn. Turn comes another ace, and player out of position checks to me. I think that caps him at never having ace-x because now there's a backdoor flush draw that has been brought in. Sure, could he go for check raise sometimes? Yes, but what do players do on average in the pool in that spot? What is relevant? And most of the time he's going to have nothing there. So I go ahead and bet for value and for protection with my tens. Player on the button just flats. I don't think he balances his strategy with enough calls of ace-x on the flop, maybe never. And I think that he is just often very capped in the spot. Could he show up with some queens and jacks? Sure. But he shows up with so many other hands because of how wide he flats pre-flop by being loose and passive. He shows up with way too much 9x and 8x to not go ahead and bet the river again. Now, what was debatable about my line was the sizing. A lot of players are not calling with 9x, with 8x, with pocket sevens. They're not going to be calling in that spot for a very large sizing, and I bet 150 and the 190, and he called and did go ahead and muck. So I think that, and what was debatable is that my line is very exploitable. The size might not work. It might be an exploitable sizing with my specific combo. But I'm not worried about that because that is not relevant in the pool as far as me seeing players balance their strategies at a high enough frequency and playing tough like that at a high enough frequency. These players are pretty much doing what I think they're doing most of the time, and that means that I'm going to go ahead and implement max exploit strategies and not worry about my general strategies being countered and not worrying about my specific lines being exploited. So this topic of relevance, this is very important. I think this is going to be one of the more important videos that I do. But I just think that you guys, sometimes I think you worry a little too much about concepts that are irrelevant within your player pool. Yes, do you want to play balanced and play more unexploitable strategies against very good players that you know are very good players and understand all those advanced concepts? Of course, but you're rarely going to run into those players. And the good thing is, and this is why I preach that you guys should learn and study some GTO type of stuff and learn some balanced strategies, is because A, you'll be able to see when players get out of line much more quickly, and you'll be able to adjust and exploit their basically tendencies when they get out of line in a much more efficient way because you know what's supposed to be optimal. B, you're going to be able to revert back to that kind of balanced strategy if need be, in the very rare instance that you end up at a table where you do think you need to be more balanced and not be as exploitable. So I think that as far as, what was I going to say, guys? Yeah, so as far as relevance goes, yeah, just consider what is relevant within your pool and what's some stuff that maybe is a little irrelevant and some concepts that you guys might be putting a little too much weight on. And by the way, I do appreciate the feedback very much on that last video. I think it's really cool that we can all discuss hands and you guys can give alternative lines. There's a lot of times where I see some lines that you guys suggest, and those might be the best lines. And I'll be like, oh yeah, that's something I never considered, and I start implementing that into my own game. I think that's one of the best ways to improve as a poker player is by discussing hands with other competent players. So I think that's really cool. I really appreciate the feedback, guys. Don't be afraid to get in that comment section and give a different opinion of how I played a hand. That's the whole point of the poker hand reviews, is to kind of generate discussion and talk about stuff like this, stuff that's relevant, hopefully. So if you guys have any questions or comments, I hope that wasn't too scattered of a video, but I think I got the point across pretty well. If you guys have any questions or comments, like I said, let me know. Until next time, this is Nick from Arch City Poker. Take care.